Book 8, line 152. The story of the Minotaur, the Labyrinth, Daedalus and Icarus, and the origin of the Partridge. Minos duly paid his vows to Jove, 100 bulls, when he disembarked upon the Cretan strand, and he hung up his spoils of war to adorn his palace. But now his family's disgrace had grown big, and the queen's foul adultery was revealed to all by her strange hybrid monster child. Matris adulterium monstri novitate biformis. Minos planned to remove this shame from his house and to hide it away in a labyrinthine enclosure with blind passages. Daedalus, a man famous for his skill in the builder's art, planned and performed the work. He confused the usual passages and deceived the eye by a conflicting maze of diverse and winding paths. Just as the watery meander plays in the Phrygian fields, flows back and forth in doubtful course, and turning back on itself beholds its own waves coming on their way, and sends its uncertain waters now towards their source, and now towards the open sea. So Daedalus made those innumerable winding passages, and was himself scarce able to find his way back to the place of entry, so deceptive was the enclosure he had built. In this labyrinth, Minos shut up the monster of the bull-man form, and twice he fed him on Athenian blood. But the third tribute, demanded after each 9 years, brought the creature's overthrow. And when, by the virgin Ariadne's help, the difficult entrance, which no former adventurer had ever reached again, was found by winding up the thread, straightway the son of Aegeus, taking Minos' daughter, spread his sails for Dia, and on that shore he cruelly abandoned his companion. To her, deserted and bewailing bitterly, Bacchus brought love and help, and that she might shine among the deathless stars, he sent the crown she wore up to the skies. Through the thin air it flew, and as it flew, its gems were changed to gleaming fires. Still keeping the appearance of a crown, it took its place between the kneeler and the serpent holder, the constellations of Hercules and Ophiuchus. Meanwhile, Daedalus, hating Crete and his long exile, and longing to see his native land, was shut in by the sea. Though he may block escape by land and water, he said, yet the sky is open, and by that way I will go. Though Minos rules over all, he does not rule the air. So saying, he sets his mind at work upon unknown arts and changes the laws of nature. For he lays feathers in order, beginning at the smallest, short next to long, so that you would think they had grown upon a slope. Just so the old-fashioned rustic panpipes with their unequal reeds rise one above the other. Then he fastened the feathers together with twine and wax at the middle and bottom, and thus arranged he bent them with a gentle curve, so that they looked like real birds' wings. His son, Icarus, was standing by, and little knowing that he was handling his own peril, with gleeful face would now catch at the feathers which some passing breeze had blown about, now mold the yellow wax with his thumb, and by his sport would hinder his father's wondrous task. When now the finishing touches had been put upon the work, the master workman himself balanced his body on 2 wings, and hung poised upon the beaten air. He taught his son also, and said, I warn you, Icarus, to fly in the middle course, lest if you go too low, the water may weight your wings. If you go too high, the fire may burn them. Fly between the two. And I bid you not to shape your course by Bootes or Alis, or the drawn sword of Orion, but fly where I shall lead. At the same time he tells him the rules of flight, and fits the strange wings on his boy's shoulders. While he works and talks, the old man's cheeks are wet with tears, and his fatherly hands tremble. He kissed his son, which he was destined never again to do, and rising on his wings, he flew on ahead, fearing for his companion, just like a bird which has led forth her fledglings from the high nest into the insubstantial air. He encourages the boy to follow, instructs him in the fatal art of flight, himself flapping his wings and looking back on his son. Now some fisherman spies them, angling for fish with his flexible rod, or a shepherd leaning upon his crook, or a plowman on his plow handles, spies them and stands stupefied, and believes them to be gods that they could fly through the air. And now Juno's sacred Samos had been passed on the left, and Delos and Paros, Labyrinth was on the right, and Calymne rich in honey, when the boy began to rejoice in his bold flight, and deserting his leader, led by a desire for the open sky, directed his course to greater height. The scorching rays of the nearer sun softened the fragrant wax which held his wings. The wax melted, his arms were bare as he beat them up and down, but lacking wings, they took no hold on the air. His lips, calling to the last upon his father's name, were drowned in the blue, dark sea, which took his name from him. But the unhappy father, now no longer father, called, "Icarus, Icarus, where are you? In what place shall I seek you?" "Icarus," he called again, and then he spied the wings floating on the deep, and cursed his skill. He buried the body in a tomb, and the land was called from the name of the buried boy. As he was consigning the body of his ill-fated son to the tomb, a chattering partridge looked out from a muddy ditch and flapped her wings, uttering a joyful note. She was at the same time a strange bird, a kind never seen before, but lately made a bird, a lasting reproach to you, Daedalus, for the man's sister, ignorant of the fates, had sent him her son to be trained, a lad of teachable mind, who had now passed his 12th birthday. This boy, moreover, observed the backbone of a fish, and taking it as a model, cut a row of teeth in a thin strip of iron, and thus invented the saw. He also was the first to bind two arms of iron together at a joint, so that while the arms kept the same distance apart, one might stand still while the other should trace a circle. Daedalus envied the lad and thrust him down headlong from the sacred citadel of Minerva with a lying tale that the boy had fallen. But Pallas, who favors the quick of wit, caught him up and made him a bird, and clothed him with feathers in mid-air. His old quickness of wit passed into his wings and legs, but he kept the name which he had before. Still, the bird does not lift her body high in flight, nor build her nest on trees or on high points of rock, but she flutters along near the ground, and lays her eggs in hedgerows, and remembering that old fall, she is ever fearful of lofty places.